Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I'd like to call the Finance Committee meeting of the Frederick County School Board to order. It is 4:34 p.m. on March the 7th. And it looks like I have an agenda before us. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Sure. I motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
I have a agenda that has been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? And motion passes. We have an agenda. I'd now like to turn it over to Dr. Hummer to run the meeting for us.
All
Dr.
right.
Hummer, it's all to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, very much. So we have quite a few items that we're going to be discussing with you this afternoon. We're first going to address some questions that you all had sent forward that we wanted to answer for you all. We want to take this time to continue to encourage you to send those questions forward so that we can answer those in a timely fashion for you. We are then going to break down an update of where we currently are with state revenues and what that means for us in regards to how much we're requesting from the locality, and we'll provide you with an update in regards to timeline as well in regards to where we're going with that. And then we're going to break down all of the additional funds for you all. We've spent a lot of time talking about the operating dollars, talking about the debt service fund, talking about our capital projects. We want to break these down a little bit further for you on each of these additional funds, so please ask questions so that we can clarify any of those for you. So with that, I will now hand it over to Mrs. Camry, and we'll go from there. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Hummer, Madam Chair, and members of the board. So we would always like to start off with the board questions. We had a question last time we met about what is our health insurance premium and how much does Frederick County Public Schools pay toward that premium. So here you'll see a chart where we've listed the current year premiums and next year's premiums. You'll see they're the same numbers, and that's because within your budget you have approved there not to be an increase for our employees. We have two plans. We have a Key Care 25 plan, and we have a health savings account. Our health savings account plan is our high deductible plan. What's in the green is what the employee pays per month. What's in the yellow is what Frederick County pays toward that, and then the total premium is what's in the white. This does include dental and medical. In our high deductible account, we do put $1,000 a month into an HSA, a health savings account for our employees. The next question we got was to please calculate the cost of time and expense for an employee who commutes to Loudoun County to offset the additional increase in salary. So I think in the last meeting we showed you this example with a 15-year teacher. That salary difference between Frederick County and Loudoun County is $27,094. We take the taxes of FICA, federal and state estimates for that additional income. We also took off the mileage to Sterling for fuel. And then there was a value of time that we were asked to calculate, which is really based on the number of hours. It's 375 basically for a year to drive from Winchester to Loudoun, Sterling. And the cost of the time for an employee is basically what their hourly rate would be. So that came out to $23,370. That also assumes that when you do that value of time, that you would have been earning that money and not driving. So there are some assumptions here that we are making, but with those we come to a net salary difference of that an employee traveling to Sterling to work there would basically take a cut in pay of $66.20.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So here, we wanted to talk about the House and Senate versions of the budget that have come out, and we've included here the superintendent's memo from the state to caution you, just to say, because some of you are new this year, is that when the House and Senate versions come out, they are just preliminary. So they have not landed, they are not final numbers. We will hear those final numbers later in April. So even though we're going to share those numbers, they are not in any way, shape, or form final for us. But when we do have, so we're just cautioning to say, hey, what you see we can get excited about, but that may not come to fruition because they may not come about. So we also want to remind you some important dates that are important to us during this budget timeline. You can see we're already down to March 27th, which is the next, where the county is going to be doing their public hearing on the tax rate, which is important for us to know roughly where they're headed toward as far as what they're looking to give to the schools for next year. And of course, you'll look down even further. The budget adoption for the Board of Supervisors is April 10th. And then we have a tentative school board finance meeting that we can then talk about what the state and local dollars are, or what we're hoping, so that you're ready to adopt on April 16th. April 17th is when the governor signs, but we would probably tend to really know the number they're giving us before that April 17th is what we're hoping. If we don't know, we'll walk you all through what we will do in order so you can adopt on April 16th. Why that's important for us to go ahead and move forward is then so we can do salary scales, so we can get contracts out to our employees.
So what do the state revenues look like, the proposals look like for us as we know them today? So here's a table just to try to break apart the differences between the House and the Senate versions. Your budget proposal started out with the governor's budget, which was just over $10 million more for Frederick County. But in the House and the Senate proposals, you can see where they disagreed with the governor. So they removed the 1% bonus that the governor had called for. And rather, they add in the state share of a compensation supplement. So you can see under the House version, they're encouraging a 3.375% compensation supplement, and the Senate 3%. They also provide some additional state funds to address our at-risk programs, as well as our English language learning.
Ms. Anderson, can I
Yes.
ask a clarifying question?
Please.
So the bonus versus supplement. So can you speak to the difference in terms?
Okay, so the bonus is one time in nature, whereas the compensation supplement goes into a salary that is sustained in future years.
Excellent, thank you.
You're welcome. And lastly, under the Senate version, they add the support cap removal. And what that is back during when the recession happened, 2009 timeframe, the state needed to reduce funding to schools. And they did that by reducing their funding towards support positions. Our support positions include things like instructional assistants, custodians, things or positions that are not necessarily forward-facing with students. But school divisions still needed to keep those support positions. So what that did, by the state funding being reduced, it shifted the financial responsibility to localities. So under the Senate proposal, they are recommending to give that state funding support back to the divisions. So there you can see under the two different scenarios what the adjustment would be to state revenue. So what do those proposals look like of what we're requesting from the county to fund your proposed budget? So our starting point was we started out asking the county for $7 million for the operating fund. We can automatically take out the local cost of the 1% bonus. We can then add in or subtract the funding that would come from the state to go towards our salary initiative. If you remember, was a 6.6 average for teachers. And then under the Senate, that support cap would certainly help fund our budget. And then both the House and the Senate add state funds to address at-risk and ELL. The Senate adds more to at-risk programs. So the second row to the bottom, this would put us into a situation of adding more programs to our budget that qualify for at-risk funding. And so then you can see under those two scenarios what that would do to our request of the county to support the operating fund. And you may be thinking, what are at-risk programs? And here's a list of the acceptable uses of at-risk state funds that have a local required match. So again, this is just for information at this time, and if this gets approved by the General Assembly, this will be a topic of discussion at a future Finance Committee meeting.
Madam Chairman, Just a clarifying question. So how is a program defined as at risk? I mean, what are the qualifications?
These are the programs that the state has given us that
So the
would
state
qualify for
determines it.
at-risk.
Okay,
Yes,
so the state determined that these are at risk.
correct.
And why are they at risk? That's, I guess, what I'm really asking. I mean, is it, maybe I'm just dense today. I did forget attendance a couple of times.
It can be somewhat social, economic in nature.
Okay,
We, on an annual basis, we have to certify to the state how we use our at-risk funding.
So, Mr. Bell, if I may, Madam Chair. So at risk at the state level is defined as a group of students that are at risk of not completing a program, of falling short of a certain milestone, of students that are not achieving at a level that they need to be achieving at.
I see.
So as you can see here, it covers English language learners, students with disabilities. That advancement via individual determination that addresses students that are economically disadvantaged, attendance. So there's a multitude of different programs that support those at-risk populations because we've identified that as a state, and we see that here in Frederick County, that those are the students that typically require additional support.
I got you. I think I understand. It's more at the secondary, yeah. Okay.
That help? Yeah, of course, of course.
So it's not that the programs are at risk, it's about the children that are at risk.
Correct.
Yes, ma'am.
That's where I was
Right.
getting caught up.
Good question.
Why, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question.
I have a question. What is ELL?
English language learners.
English language
Language learners. Mhm.
Okay. Can I see that again? Can you go back one?
Sure. Is this the slide you were talking about?
Okay. Understand now. Thank you.
Okay. So here's just to recap, because we've got 3 different state proposals on the table and how it impacts the request of the county. Operating fund, we started out asking for $7 million. It changes to $3 million under the House, and under the Senate version, the county wouldn't need to supply additional funds for the operating fund. But you can see for debt service and capital projects, regardless of the state budget, those numbers don't change. So the rest of this evening, we're going to talk about the funds that are highlighted in this table, because our previous finance committees, we've talked about the operating fund and the school nutrition fund. The first we'll talk about is the school textbook fund. This is a separate fund from our operating fund that we use to capture the activities of providing textbooks free of charge to our students. They can be in both physical and digital formats. We do have a part-time staff position coded to this fund to help manage the inventory and purchasing of our textbooks. This fund is funded by the state standards of quality, which requires a local match of funds that we transfer from the school operating fund into this fund. And you can see on the slide the textbooks that are planned for adoption next year are math for middle and high school and AP computer science textbooks.
Madam Chairman, who chooses the textbooks?
So we have instructional supervisors in our department that lead that process, and it's chosen in collaboration with usually department chairs at the high school level, lead teachers at the middle school
Okay,
level.
so the teachers are involved in the
yeah,
process.
there's a large committee that includes teachers, administrators, and parents, and then it's set out and available for review from anybody in the community for a period of time, and then the committee makes a decision based on feedback.
And that includes AP, for instance. Are there people who are,
It's the same process for everything.
and
Yep.
there are people who are experts in AP or
That's
have
correct.
experienced AP, that sort of thing?
The AP teacher that will be likely using the book will be on the committee.
Okay.
Yep.
So that concerns me a little bit. I know, for instance, my son in Sharando has an AP math teacher, and he wasn't supposed to be the AP math teacher for a junior. he was supposed to be teaching algebra, general. And I'm just wondering if that's the case with the members of the committee. Like, I don't know if there's any sort of, if you look at their experiences, what they're, adept in and what they're not.
So keep in mind, it's a county-wide, and so every school has representation.
So every school, okay.
Yeah, so there
there's-
will be.
There's multiple. Gotcha.
Yeah, and I believe that situation at Sarando was one out of necessity as opposed to one out of choice based
Oh,
on
it absolutely is
staffing.
out of necessity.
Yeah,
I have
but-
nothing against this person. I
Yeah,
just-
yeah.
If we're choosing a new textbook, I want the best people to look at it.
Absolutely. Yep. It's a pretty large committee that looks at it, so it's usually there's about 35 or 40 people on those committees.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
With that being said, we're going to move into the debt service fund. This you've seen before, but we always like to bring this back up again because it is a kind of an important fund. This is how we pay our principal and interest payments on our outstanding debt. You'll see this slide only shows the amount of money we need from the Board of Supervisors. So this is just the change in the debt that we need funding from them. So in FY25, that our debt that we require from them is 20.45. That's a $2.35 million difference from FY24. But here we see the fund as a whole, and this is the revenue side of the fund. We do see a decrease in state dollars for next year. You'll see the FY24 adopted and what we're proposing in FY25. Federal dollars, we're having a little bit of an increase. That's called QSCAB, which is when, back during the recession, when the feds were trying to help schools borrow money. So they give like a refund based on the interest. The county total we need from them is 20.4, which if you look in the next column of the increase-decrease, you see again the 2.35 amount of that increase that we just showed you on the previous slide. And then you'll see that down on the transfer in for school operating of $226,000. The reason there's nothing there for FY25 and there was something there for FY24, that's only happens when there's a timing difference of a borrowing. We have to estimate what we think the interest rate will be on a borrowing, and the budget is already approved afterwards. So in this instance, this is when the interest rate started going up. So we calculated what that interest rate would be. So we had to do a transfer from the school operating fund in FY24, the current year, in order to cover our debt payments. But we're not doing that again in FY25. That's not needed. So you'll see our total debt payment is $20.9 million in total. And here's the expenditure side of how that breaks down for the debt service fund. We have other charges that we have to pay our attorney and U.S. Bank fees that we have to do when we borrow. We have principal payments and interest payments for next year. Again, this comes to the $20.9 million debt service fund. Our bonds, we have 32 outstanding for 14 capital projects. And though that may seem like a lot, just for Janeswood High School borrowing, by the time we finish, we'll have 7 different bond issues for just Janeswood High School, because we only borrow for a 6-month period. That way we don't pay as much interest, because if we borrowed it all up front, it would be almost 3.5 years of interest up front. So then that creates a higher amount that we have to pay back. So we project and work with our construction supervisor to determine what those expenses are for the next 6 months, and that's what we go and borrow. Also, just so you know, this is through the Virginia Public School Authority, and the Board of Supervisors, the county administration and the Board of Supervisors are very involved. They have to sign off on this debt as well as we do. So we want to give you an example of what an actual debt bond financing looks like when we go out for this bond. The Indian Hollow project has been completed, and so what we're showing you are the bond borrowings we did over a period of time. What you'll notice is in the first column, the premiums and interest earnings. That is basically free money to us when we go out. That means we got a premium on that borrowing, and we also earned interest on that borrowing. The principal amount is what we actually borrowed at that point in time. So you see the principal amount of 10.3 was borrowed, but 1.7 on top of that is money we received, but we don't have to pay it back. Okay? Again, this is over 20 years. That's an agreed-upon time frame that the Board of Supervisors prefer. They could change at any point and say, we'd like to make that 15 years, and we would so do that in any other future borrowings. Our Capital Projects Fund is next on the list, and you've heard some about that as well. This is a fund that goes down to zero every year unless a project's not completed. So whatever is approved in a year, that's the only amount of money we have to be spent on that. The only time there may be some money left over in that fund is because we estimate what something may cost us, and it may get done cheaper. So then there could be some savings in that fund that we can use on something else, but it's usually something in the Capital Projects Fund itself. So we do have that. That's a year-to-year basis that we have to ask for money from the Board of Supervisors to get. There's no transfer. It's what they give us is what gets put into that fund, and then we address those capital projects. These items, if they're not addressed, they roll over to the next year. And you'll see in a slide I think we presented before, we showed what projects in that list were from 23, 24, and what was in 25. So we try to show that if it's not addressed, it rolls to the next year. And then it starts building up. The Capital Asset Plan is a book that we do present to you all and the Board of Supervisors. We created that as probably about 7 years ago when they asked us to show what are our needs in the future. Show us what you're going to need. So we created this book to show what we need in the upcoming budget and future years as well. So that was kind of like a budgeting tool to kind of help them and us determine what our needs are in the capital projects. Now, this is different than the CIP, the Capital Improvement Plan, which are our construction projects, okay?
I have a question. Let's say I'm crazy rich,
Oh.
and I want to give you some money for the CAP projects, but you say that it can only come from the Board of Supervisors.
It doesn't, that's where our funding comes from currently. If we had a crazy rich person who wanted to give us $10 million, we'll take it, and we'll put it in that fund. So if you want to write us a check after this, Mr. Bell, we'll take it.
I don't have that much blood. But the other question then is, you can also use grants to help pay for some of these projects. Could you not?
Yeah, we look, now, some of the things like especially safety and security, we do look at grants and use those funds. Yes, that is correct.
Okay, I was just curious because I wanted to make sure that, yeah.
I didn't know if you were asking who to write the check out to, and it's Frederick County Public Schools.
To board member Daryl M. Bell. See, I pay myself and get a tax break.
There you go. Also, in this, when we put things on the capital projects, the capital asset plan, these things are those that we can no longer get parts for, or there is not cost prohibitive to fix because some things age out and it's too costly to fix. So those things have already been looked at, those items to say, hey, we can no longer get parts, it's time to start looking to replace. And we also wanted to show you that in facilities, there is a repair and maintenance budget as well as a preventive maintenance budget. So we spend over $5.1 million overseeing our assets and trying to fix them. We have over $1 billion in assets. So to put that in perspective, we have a lot of assets that are out there. Any questions before I? So here's that list you've seen in the past. This was in alphabetical order, but this is where the total amount is $19.8 million in FY25 to address those plans. And this is on our CAP page 6. What this slide shows you is we then went back, and this was included in your Friday newsletter, to say we took these capital projects and then put them in priority order. So this is not alphabetical anymore. This is a priority, and this is just the top 15 of the 35 items on that capital asset project list. And you all have the full list in priority order that was sent to you. Again, look at that last column, originally year requested. You'll start seeing the years that came onto the cap and then kept rolling forward from there. Our private purpose fund is where we serve basically as the fiscal agent overseeing this fund for donations that come to us. So this is the expenditure side. The biggest nonprofit or basically, I call it a nonprofit, but it's still under our umbrella, is Bright Futures. And then, of course, all of our scholarships are under this fund as well. Bright Futures, just so you know, is that we put put in money into this fund, as well as Winchester Public Schools, to help pay for salaries. There is, I believe she's a supervisor out there. We also have a full-time driver and a full-time clerical person who helps at Bright Future. So 3 employees out there. So what we put in is $195,000, and what Winchester Public Schools does is $105,000. That's based on the number of students they serve, and that's how we came up to that amount of money.
Ms. Camry, if I can, just editorialize a little. Dr. Howard, do you mind kind of explaining what Bright Futures helps us as a county cover as far as abiding by certain federal and state regulations, that they actually come in and take care of that for us and help us meet those needs as opposed to us having to do it?
Absolutely. So there is a multitude of students that are in need that we have to support. There is a population of students that are categorized under McKinney-Vento, who are students who are homeless, that we are required to provide them with access to their education as well as certain materials. And there is as Mrs. Stein-Dollner will share with you, there is over 1,000 students and families that we are supporting on a regular basis. So that magnitude of need would definitely fall to the school division if we weren't able to continue moving forward with this particular program. The amount of support that we provide for students, not only to access food, but access certain materials such as blankets, different types of toiletries that they need, just because of the circumstances that they're currently exposed to. And that directly impacts our students' ability to access their education. So there would be a burden that we would have to take on if this program didn't exist. And we also, let's face it, everyone in this room is an educator. We have really big hearts, and we sometimes purchase these things on our own. So if we did not have access to these toiletries and blankets and food, we would be purchasing them from ourselves, which then puts an additional burden on us as well. So that there is that requirement, especially for McKinney-Vento, and it's definitely important that we meet the needs of our students and our community. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Excellent, thank you. And so it's fairly safe to say, I know we don't have the numbers here, and nor would I ask for them in this venue as of right now because we have so many other things going on, but I believe it would be safe to say that should Bright Futures cease to exist, which we hope it never does, that we would have to incur as a school division the cost of accommodating and providing all of those things. So essentially, we are getting this service as a discount because we have so many great private donors in the nonprofit sector that are donating, that have a passion for this and are donating to Bright Futures.
That is correct.
Okay, great, thank you.
So here's a breakdown of the private purpose fund. So you can see all the scholarships that are in there as well as Bright Futures. So we're showing you what their beginning balance is. These balances roll forward every year, so they don't go away, anything that's unspent. The donations and interest that's earned on these, the payments, and of course the expenditures. And then those ending balance at the end of the year will roll forward to the next year. So I'll just pause here and give you a chance just to kind of look at some of these. Okay, and with that, I'll go to the last slide where we're just kind of describing for your benefit of what some of these scholarships are for, who they address, who they help. So I won't sit here and read them for you, but they're here just for you to have more in-depth knowledge of them.
Thank you.
So if there are no questions about private purpose, we'll move on to the Consolidated Services Fund. This fund captures vehicle maintenance activity out at our transportation shop over on 522 South. So not only do we transport students, but we also manage 13 fueling sites, fueling for our buses, as well as fueling that is provided to county governmental agencies, such as the firehouses and public safety. So we charge fuel to those agencies at cost. There is a cost to us for doing that because we are procuring that fuel as well as managing the accounting necessary for that. As you can see that this fund, it captures 14 full-time equivalent positions that include a supervisor, mechanic, service writer, and parts inventory technicians, as well as an administrative assistant. They are also included in the salary proposal for the division. And this fund is, appropriation is going up $1 million because the ending fund balance for this fund rolls to the next year so that we can replace equipment at our garage when needed.
Ms. Anderson, can I
Yes.
break your train of thought one more time just
Sure.
to editorialize? You said something key there that I've learned through this process during my brief stint on the board so far, and that's appropriation. So I think there's a lot of confusion out there in the community, and I'll just draw your attention to this particular example since we have the slide up. Line 6,000, if you will. That 6,000, by the way, is an accounting code. It's a Virginia State Department of Education accounting code. Did I get that correct?
You're correct.
Okay. That there has actually been, side note, there's been a legend added to the budget document so that you can actually look those up and see what they mean, which wasn't previous part of that in previous years. Now on to that appropriations point. So we are a government entity, so we do have to ask for funds. We do have to ask for a certain amount of funds before we spend the money. So that's what an appropriation is. So we are basically in fiscal year 2025, if you look at the materials and supplies, $2,885,120. That is our ask. It doesn't necessarily mean we'll spend that, but that is our ask. And then if you look back in fiscal year 2024, $2,830,695, I would presume that the increase in fiscal year 25 would be because we did not spend everything that we had asked for or appropriated for in fiscal year 2024.
That's correct.
Okay, excellent. So it's not so much that there is an increase of hidden funds or any other expenditures that are not being transparent. It's merely what we did not spend in fiscal year 2024 that is now just rolled right into 2025 in case we need it, correct?
That is correct. The Consolidated Services Fund, as well as the other funds that we've discussed tonight, operate differently than our operating fund, and that is when we have remaining funds at the end of the year. For the operating fund, those remaining funds go back to the county, and we have to request to have them reappropriated for use. These funds don't work that way. Any remaining balances roll to the next year for these specific purposes, for the activities within this fund.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you. So here's just a visual. The sources of funds are primarily billings to the school operating fund for transporting our students, work on our buses, as well as the fuel for our buses. And then you can also see the uses of funds there. The operating is predominantly purchasing fuel and supplies.
Oh,
You have a question?
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Sure.
With regards to our buses, have we ever looked into electric buses for Frederick County? The EPA has a great program that I actually emailed you, Shane, and Dr. Hummer the information.
When that came about, we did talk to our director of transportation to look into that to see if it was something we should take part in. He declined, stating that because our routes are so far out in the county and there's not charging stations, that it wouldn't behoove us to start looking at that because we are so spread out. Now, Winchester City would probably get a lot from that because their routes are very tight as far as how far they travel. But we have I know Dr. Hummer loves this, 1.8 million miles we drive every year.
2.4.
Thank you very much. I knew you would have that. Thank you.
She was asleep.
Miles
for the
every
other
year.
part.
And that may be a little difficult with electric buses, and where then we would have to pay for those charging stations to also be out in different places.
The charging stations aren't included in the grant?
With the grant that we saw, it was just for the buses.
I see.
Madam
could be
Chair,
other grants.
if I may add to that, Mr. Bell, and that is something that we've looked at, and it's something we're always willing to consider all items that are going to help us be more efficient. I think another piece to add to what Mrs. Camry said of not only us being as large as we are, I have had some anecdotal conversations with some bus drivers as well, and one of the all of the concerns that they brought up to me is the time it's going to add. Because you have to remember, with an electric bus, it does not last as long as a diesel-filled bus or a gas-filled bus, so they're going to have to stop more frequently, and it's going to add time in between their routes or at the end of the day or the beginning of the day, and it's something that they want to avoid. And there is a difference between a gas bus and a diesel bus. I've heard those concerns as well.
Oh, yeah.
But when you talk about electric, they were like, absolutely not. It would definitely add some more time. But for Winchester or a smaller school division, absolutely, it would make sense. I think we're just a little too large, and those dynamics we'll have to take into account.
Okay, thank you. I know it's working in Harrisonburg and in the county there. I don't, I assume they're as big as we are, but there could be a possibility maybe in the future that it should be looked at.
Madam Chair, if I may add, I recently attended a Region 4 meeting with our Loudon, another school division that's just over on the other side of the mountain. And they do have some electric buses they've had for a while, and they also have been experiencing some concerns with battery arcing. That's a new issue with some of the electric vehicles, bicycles, fire hazard, safety hazard, things like that. So they've paused some of those exploratory opportunities and started to look at compressed gas instead. So that's another new technology that is
Interesting.
out there. So there's a lot of new technology. It hasn't been out a long time.
Sure.
So other than also experiencing issues with charging in the wintertime under extremely cold temperatures that you probably read about with a lot of electric vehicles, buses are the same, and they're also very, very heavy. Those electric batteries are extremely heavy. So I think it's something we should continue to explore down the road, but those are the reasons I think most people in the region aren't using those here.
And Madam Chair, just a quick Google search here. Harrisonburg is 17 square miles, and we are 413.
Fine. So picky. Yeah, but if you go back and forth 200 times, it's the same amount.
But Madam Chair, as I mentioned, all jokes aside, and as Mr. Goodwin mentioned, if there's ways that could be more efficient for shorter routes, and if it can save us money, absolutely, we're going to look into that. We just
Sure.
want to make sure we work through all those logistics.
No, I assumed as much, but I also wanted to sort of put it out there on the record that you have looked into it because people have asked me about it.
Yeah.
Constituents have asked me about it, so it's,
Yes, sir.
so there.
All right, so we'll move on to the construction fund. You heard Mrs. Camry talk about the bond issues that we incur under the debt service fund. When we receive those bond proceeds, those monies are deposited into this fund so that we can pay our construction contracts and activities for those active major construction projects that are going on. And as you know, our two active construction projects are Jameswood High School and Indian Hollow. Indian Hollow is substantially complete at this point, and of course, Jameswood High School with a scheduled opening date of July 2025. The way that the budget works for the construction fund, it's not a fixed dollar amount that we get approved. Rather, the approved annual budget for this project or this fund is based on the project, the original project amount less anything that has been spent on that project to date. So we'll move on to the health insurance fund. We are self-funded. What that means is that our premiums, our health insurance premiums, have to be set at a rate to cover our health claims expenses. So we capture that activity here in this fund. The sources of revenue for this fund comes from the employer through a transfer into this fund, as well as from employees through payroll deduction, transferring those monies here for those employees who participate in our health insurance plan. And as you can see, the employer contributes significantly more. So the uses of those funds predominantly go to healthcare claims expense as well as dental claims. We also have 2% of the uses of these funds goes towards our on-site health clinic. So the cost of that health clinic is rolled into our premiums. And our health clinic is very popular. It's growing, more participation. And we opened it back in August of 2020 to provide primary care type services for our participating employees and their dependents. We're currently out to bid for a potential new provider for that facility. The facility is located across the street, right here on Amherst Street. And we're also considering adding an additional nurse practitioner to meet the demands of the usage of that facility. Moving on to the Special Grants Fund. The Special Grants Fund accounts for the all-in Virginia funds that we received from Governor Youngkin in the amount of $4,163,705. And you can see what the targeted uses of those funds are for. It's a multi-year grant expected to sunset in 2026. Therefore, the 2025 budget is approved for amounts based on cash balances at the end of this fiscal year. And if you have any questions about the All-In Virginia funds and its activities, I'm going to phone my friend, Dr. Angelo. He's our resident expert on all things All-In Virginia.
I have a question. Dr. Angelo. For the intensity tutoring, how many tutors did we hire or had to hire?
You know, I don't have the number of how many we hired off the top of my head because a lot of that is done internally. So we have had some external tutors that are coming in. And I know off the top of my head, Gainsborough Elementary School, I think, uses a model that uses almost exclusively external tutors. Many of those are retired teachers.
I see.
And then I think Armel was the other school that had a pretty high number of tutors that were selected. And then otherwise, many of them are doing it through their existing staff, either before or after school.
And how long is this grant funded for?
It goes through 2026.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so this, in my opinion, is going to be the most exciting part of this presentation, where we're going to talk about the Northwestern Regional Education Program, or NREP for short. So I'd like to invite Dr. Reeves to come to the podium. She is the program administrator for NREP.
Madam Chair, committee members, Dr. Hummer, I'm really excited to be here this evening to talk a little bit about NREP and who we serve, the divisions we serve, as well as some of the goals that we have for our program. So if you look at the overview here, we are a regional educational program serving Winchester City Public Schools, Frederick County Public Schools, as well as Clark County Public Schools. And we're part of that continuum of special education services. We are a public separate school, and we offer intensive behavioral as well as therapeutic supports within our building for students with emotional disabilities, students with autism, and we do have a multiple disabilities program. We also house early childhood special education for Winchester City Public Schools as well as Frederick County Public Schools at this time. And we are supported by our memorandum of understanding between the three localities. We are overseen by the Board of Superintendents. That Dr. Hummer is the chair of that board. We also have Dr. Van Hoeklam from Winchester City Public Schools and Rick Catlett, who sit on that board. And that board is made up of the superintendents as well as the division's special education directors, Dr. Sandy, as well as Dr. Mullins from Winchester City. And we also have Frank Moore from Clark County as well. So those three directors also meet with us monthly. We meet with the superintendents monthly, and we talk about what we can do to serve the students of all localities better, what needs are within those localities. So we are able to come together collaboratively throughout the month and talk about those, some of those needs within the localities. Our current enrollment, we do serve K-12. We have 52 students in that program right now. We have 147 students in our early childhood special education program right now, and we serve 60 students who are just receiving speech services at this time. Our special education programming, as I've already mentioned, we do have an emotional disabilities program. I do want to mention that even though we do serve students with emotional disabilities, we do not program by a student's label in special education. If there's a student that requires intensive supports and has behavioral needs, social skill needs, and the IEP team comes together, we make those decisions in those IEP meetings, and they may be served within our programs. We also have like I said, the autism program, and that is a new and growing program and seems to be the fastest growing program in our school age program at this time. And we actually are serving more students in those programs than we are in our students with programs for students with emotional disabilities. Our MD program right now, we have 2 classrooms. Frederick County does a really great job serving our students with multiple disabilities within their home schools, but we do serve many students from Winchester City Public Schools within our programs in that multiple disabilities classroom. Early childhood is by far our quickest growing program. We do serve 147 students. That is up from last year of about 123 students, and it is still continuing to grow. We have 13 classrooms right now with 13 teachers, and we have an itinerant teacher that goes out into the community to provide some of those services in their private schools, their daycares. And she currently serves about 13 students on her caseload for itinerant services.
Quick question?
Sure.
How many students can you, what is your capacity?
So right now, we have room. We look at the state regulations when it comes to caseloads for our teachers.
course.
And so right now, our school age program is within those parameters, and we can serve more students. In our early childhood program, we are seeing such a growth and such quick growth that we are over capacity in terms of the case management, not the facility, but case management. And that is something the superintendents as well as the directors are working on right now.
Sure.
Yes,
May I ask something?
sure.
How are these early childhood children chosen?
How are they chosen?
How do they
For the
get
pro-
there?
So we serve Winchester City Public Schools as well as Frederick County Public Schools in their special ed programming for early childhood special education.
so there's special
So
ed
it is special education programming, and they are housed within NREP. And so it would be through that eligibility process, if a student is found eligible to receive special education, the team would meet as an IEP team and determine where those services are going to be served. And if a student requires a special education classroom for early childhood, that would be at our building.
So they're at different schools? Or are they at one particular?
So currently, we serve all the special education classrooms that are more of that self-contained model where they require those intensive supports at NREP. Some of the students, if the IEP team determines that they can be within some of the VPI classrooms, they would be served in the schools those VPI classrooms. That's a less restrictive placement on that continuum of services for special education. And then if we meet as that team and determine that they can get those services within their private schools or their centers that they're in, our itinerant teachers would go out and serve those students within the environment that they're already in. So we have a whole continuum of services for special ed. We just house the special education classrooms for Winchester City as well as Frederick County.
Does that answer your question, Mrs. Martin?
Kind of.
And Michelle?
What, is there an
Yeah.
age limit?
So two to five.
2 to 5?
Hmm.
Okay.
And these are just special ed
Students
students, not
in special
Students.
Right,
education.
not pre-K.
Yes.
Right.
Not the pre-K.
Right.
Right.
Because then our pre-K program, which is the VPI, that's currently in 4 of our elementary
That's in
schools,
Florida.
and that's
what I
72.
saw at Stonewall.
Correct. Yes, ma'am. Yes, these are specifically students with disabilities that have went through the eligibility process. Now, we also have some students that are in the VPI program that also have disabilities, but they do not have as much needs as these students that are currently placed at NREP.
And are they there all day long?
So that is an IEP team decision. Most of the students that we have are there all day long, especially our 4-year-olds who are getting ready for kindergarten. But if there is, medical advice, there's a whole team at the IEP team, and they determine that the student may not require or cannot access being there all day due to health issues, whatever might come up in those meetings. I would say predominantly, most of the students are being served all day within our program.
But if you think about some students who are age 2 or 3, that might be a really long day for them.
Yeah.
So that really allows the IEP team to determine what services are necessary and what is the length of time that they would need to be there. And I want to go back to your question, Mr. Bell. When we talked about each of those programs, it is based on the caseload.
Yes.
So I was going through, if you look at disability, and while we don't program based on that, just listing those, you're looking at 8 to 10 students in each of those classrooms with a teacher
Sure.
and at least one instructional assistant.
Yeah, no, I'm familiar with the ratio. Thank you. I was just curious more of along the lines of the physicality of the building itself, like how close are you to filling, if at all?
We are currently using most of our classrooms in the building right now.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Just wanted to give you an overview. In looking at the localities and looking at the vision and mission of Clark as well as Winchester and Frederick County, we came up with our vision and our mission for NREP, and you can take a look there. And it really does encompass a lot of what Frederick County Public Schools is looking at for students. And that takes us to our overarching program goal. We are really there not for students to come and stay. We want the kids to, when students are placed because they require those intensive needs, our goal is to get them back to their home schools as quickly as possible, equipping them with the skills necessary to be successful within their home schools. So when we look at our goals as a program, serving the localities, we keep everything kind of in that alignment. All the things that we offer them is really just to prepare them to get back to their schools. So with that, we've identified areas to help support that. Number one is we have to offer those high leverage practices, the instructional support. So when they go back to school, they're not struggling instructionally, which might lead to behavior problems. So we really are providing our teachers with more professional development. Frederick County includes all of our teachers in all of the professional development and on any kind of instructional committees. Winchester City is also starting to provide us opportunities for our teachers to go over and be part of some of the things that they're doing within their school system as well, which is something new this year. We also are working on the culture and climate of our school. It can be a difficult place to work, and not because of the kids or the people there. It's just the intensity of behaviors and those types of supports that kind of surround a program like NREP. And so we're constantly looking at ways to build our kids up, but also to build our staff and all of our support staff up. So that is definitely an area, because we know if we can support our students and we can support our staff, we can move those students back into their home schools. So that's a critical area that we want to continue to look at. Social skills. When we go to IEP meetings, one of the things that we want to ensure our families that are placing trust in us is that what makes us different, what is going to get our kids back into their home school, and that really is those social skills. And so we are focused on building a social skills program where kids are getting intensive social skills, tier 1 type instruction within, kind of embedded within the whole program, and adding that mental health piece into it. So currently we have a psychologist, a BCBA, as well as a student support specialist that are working together to build those programs. We just adopted a social skills program that we are using. The kids are loving it. It's kind of just out there this year in sort of a way to get familiar with it. And then next year, we're going to be implementing that fully. I'll be taking that in front of our superintendents to kind of give them a full view of what we're looking at in terms of mental health programming, as well as that social skills and how it all fits together with our ABA therapists. So that's coming soon, Dr. Homer. Okay, and then a big area, because of we're in an older building, there's some safety things. We have students that come to us that really do require us to ensure that they have a safe environment. There, we have a series of behaviors. We're on Cincinnati Road, and so we have really focused on school safety. And I can tell you that we've had a huge response from Frederick County Public Schools. They've come in, they've looked at the areas of need, they've looked at our crisis plan, and we've really started to put that together. And so we just met today, as a matter of fact, and we've been talking to our families about school safety. That's their number one when they meet with us, is that piece. You would think it would be instruction, and a lot of our parents just want to know their kids are getting there safely and getting home safely. So that is a focus, and Frederick County has partnered with us, and we're moving in a great direction in that area. So that's another one of our areas. And then area number 5 is a piece that, vocational programs for our high school students. If they come from a school that has vocational programs and they come into a program that doesn't, and they already feel like they're being taken out of their home schools and put into a different school to work on behavior, that vocational piece is really important. And it's something we don't have at NREP and with CTE. So we have partnered again with Frederick County, and Winchester is starting to partner with us as well. The key piece here is ensuring that we have the staff necessary and the CTE credentials, and that's what we're working on right now, so we can start building our vocational programs, as well as the space necessary to build those programs. Ben Thompson has, over at Dow J, has been working with us to provide our students opportunities, especially our high school students, in his program, if we are able to do that. And we've had 2 students that have benefited from that already this year, and that's been a great partnership, and our kids have made a lot of progress when they've been able to go out and have some of that work experience. So area number 5 for our high school is very, very important. I think that's you. Do you guys have any questions about NREP? I know that was kind of quick and just an overview.
Yes, actually. Do you at all partner with NW Works in any of the programs that you do, like from when they get to 12th grade and they're going to graduate? Do they go on to NW Works or a similar program as that?
So our
Here she comes.
student support.
She's coming right behind you.
Yeah, so yes, we do. The answer is yes. We have worked with not only NW Works, but some of the other, and it just went out of my head, so I apologize. DARS, thank you. Developmental, please.
Department of Rehabilitative Services.
Thank you,
Yeah.
thank you. They work with some of our students. We have had some challenges since COVID, having opportunities for our students to go
Sure.
out for some of those work experience. It's starting to come back now,
Oh,
and we're
good.
starting to have more and more of those conversations, which is exciting. And just actually talked with a high schooler today about getting him some opportunities. But since COVID, we've had a little more trouble getting our kids into some of that. And I don't know if you guys have as well.
Sure. We have a transition specialist who also
okay.
supports our students at NREP and works with all of those agencies as we work through what we refer to as the transition plan. And so we need to start thinking about that, as they're turning 14, thinking about what they want to do when they leave us. So we provide those goals, and then we match those goals to agencies that would be able to help support them.
Okay.
So absolutely. And in your board packet tomorrow, you'll see that our high schools just finished a leadership program in partnership with Access Independence, and we're also getting ready to do one with Northwestern Community Services Board,
Oh, right. Okay, yeah,
where
Northwestern's a
they
great.
were able to learn about themselves as leaders, so the leader within them, self-advocacy, as well as some more self-determination skills.
Okay.
Excuse me, when you say agencies, do you mean companies that might be hiring them, or do you mean that they're continuing education?
So for students who leave us, some may leave at 18, some may stay until age of 22. These are agencies that will support them once they leave us with those community resources that may not be necessarily needed for them when they're 14, but they definitely need as they're older. Did that answer your question? Okay.
This was wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. I look forward to finally visiting you when we can get our schedules to jive.
Yeah.
I know, we've been trying.
So it's hard to follow up to that and start talking about dollars again, right? So we are a fiscal agent of NREP. We heard Dr. Reeves talk about it being a shared program between Frederick, Clark, and Winchester City. As you can see here, the proposed budget for NREP for next year. It's a people-intensive business. It supports 89.4 full-time equivalent positions and is requesting 2 additional itinerant early childhood teachers for next year. Just to give you some added information, the other charges that you see there is for utilities and rent. The NREP program pays Frederick County Schools rent for the Cincinnati Road facility.
Oh, okay.
So how is NREP funded? It's shared between the 3 participating localities based upon their student enrollment in the program. So that is a billing back to our school operating fund for our students that attend there. And then, of course, then we bill out to Clark County and Winchester schools for their student enrollment. And since we're fiscal agent, I wanted to go back and say that the employees at NREP, they fall on our pay scales, so they're part of the salary initiative that's proposed for Frederick County Schools, as well as they are given our employee benefits as well.
Can you go back one? Oh, no, go forward one, sorry.
Sure.
So at the risk of sounding NATO-y, we have 72% of the funding.
For the current year, yes.
Yeah. Is that due to the fact that we have more students from Frederick County there than the other 2 schools?
That is correct.
I see.
And you can see that percentage is changing a bit next year because enrollments are changing.
Uh-huh. Okay. And does NREP pay rent to only Frederick County?
Only Frederick County, yes, it's our building, yes. So if there are no questions about the NREP operating fund, we'll move to the NREP textbook fund. So this have a separate fund for textbook purchases at NREP. And the NREP operating fund supports this fund by a transfer of $20,000 for those needs. And of course, like the other funds, ending balances roll to the next year for use for the same purpose. So if there are no questions, I'll turn it back to Dr. Humber.
So, Madam Chair, that there's no action items. This was all information for you all, but open to any questions that you all might have additional.
All right. Thank you all so much for all the great work. I really appreciate it. And I also appreciate, as chair, I get to spend an hour with you two prior to this. So thank you for answering all my prelim questions and setting us all up for success up here. It's definitely appreciated. And thank you, ladies, for coming out and talking more about NREP. I'm going to date myself. I grew up here and I remember it as Cincinnati Road Elementary. So it's been a minute. So thank you for all the great work that you're doing. And also just wanted to comment in case there's anyone watching or reviewing this afterwards. NREP fills a vital role in our school system because we are required by state and federal law and just by being good humans to provide for those students that are not eligible to be in our traditional school programs. So you guys provide a much needed service to keep us legally compliant as well as just being great citizens. So thank you for that. So any other questions? All right. Seeing that there's no questions, it is about 5:35. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Yes, you may. I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, I now adjourn this meeting. It is 5:36 p.m. Thank you all.